So we are back with Koen and Sander from Keoken to talk about Deliver Us the Moon, and let's plunge a bit into the game. So the game it's a narrative game, sci-fi game, contains puzzles and also some bit of action. So it's a quite of mix of different type of games, but in the end it works perfectly well. I mean the pace is really good, and yeah, it has for me personally it was a real good experience. One of the strong points of the game I found was the story. The story and the scenario, the writing was really great. It was really hard to drop the controller to go to bed from time to time because you want to know more about the story, and the way it has been told was really great. There was not so many items to read, because in some games sometimes the rhythm is quite broken by a lot of things to read, and there you manage to have a very good setup of giving pieces of the story without being too obvious, because there are some parts, like when I won't spoil anything, but when you learn who you are, I found that really well done. It's just in a sentence, because that's a question you ask from the beginning, because we talk about so many characters and the family of Isaac and all those, and you don't know until the very, not the very end, but to the end of the story who you are, and that was really great. So who wrote that story, and where does it come from?
I think maybe it did start with me, of course, but wanting to craft a believable astronaut experience. So where you have the feeling of that dream idea of floating in space and going to the moon, together with, like, you know, the way the environment is being used, or how politics will go in the background, or how that kind of gave a great basis for to kind of tell a mystery story around this. And I think that the entire team, as we said, we are T-shaped, worked a great deal on all these aspects. So we had a writer in the beginning that is called Ernst Jan van Melle. Is a guy who literally did the foundations on, for example, all the names of the bases are astronomers from certain countries. So Tombaugh was an astronomer, of course, like Copernicus, of course. The Moon Hub is called like that. And I think that then other writers that later jumped on the project, such as Niels Leenders, was a big influence on crafting out those pillars that we've set out. And eventually, like I said, Sander and I remember Jordi, and we even have a lot of editors on the story, crafted the experience as it is today. And Sander, yeah, you can tell a lot more about the exact details on spacing that out.
Yeah. Niels did a phenomenal job, I think, back in 2017. This must have been, I think, of fleshing out the different locations, the characters, their backgrounds, what their motivations are, what they want to do, where they've been, and that just gave a very solid basis for us to continue on later on when we worked on the final level, Tombaugh. But before that, he wrote the voiceover script. Which was the first time we've done something like this, at least on this scale. So that was a very unique challenge for us, but one that we gladly accepted, because it brings such a cool, new and human dimension to the game, in addition to just text. So that was really nice. And Jordi, who was, I believe, the only native American speaker on the team at the time, he helped out with editing the text, making sure it sounds like actual American or English for that matter. But apart from that, a big part of what tells the story is, a big part of the story is the way that it is told. So Niels had this really great story written out, and now we just needed to make sure that it was told in the right way, and that means dropping emails or things you can read, creating audio logs or the holograms that you can unlock in the game. These are all narrative tools that you can use in order to tell different parts of the story in different ways, and they also help to let players distinguish between levels, between different layers. So for example, we knew that some parts of the story should not be missed by anyone, and these are usually the audio logs, so these are always placed in locations where you can't miss them.
Yeah.
Whereas holograms, they tell a lot of essential information, but you can understand the story without viewing most of them. And so these are optional mechanics, so these can be missed if you're not into it, and that's fine. But I think determining each of these narrative tools and also determining their exact location, that is an art on itself. That took the input of so many different people on the team, level design, also our technical designers, our animator at the time also had a very strong opinion about our narrative tools. So yeah, and another case of T-shaped.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's still the T-shape. It's back on the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say a great example that's almost perfect on how to craft a moment-to-moment experience is the start of The Last of Us. The pacing that they used and the fact that they dropped certain interactions and pieces of the story at the right moments, at the right spots. It's super hard because in the game it's not a movie. So in a movie, you know exactly which frame is coming next. Now you have to take into account that a player action can go right, left, or what is he doing? And I think studying that first chapter of The Last of Us taught us a lot on how to iterate on that moment-to-moment basis. And I think that's also something that brought the entire pacing up to a very plausible level where it doesn't necessarily becomes dull or overly hard that you're frustrated. So that's where we kind of reach flow in a way.
Yeah. Okay. And indeed, the game is very emotional, I would say. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are communicated, such as being suddenly in space, in the void, or of course the takeoff. The first takeoff was incredible. And how hard is it to transmit that? I mean, did you have to go through a lot of tries and then test it yourself to see if the result was what you wanted to transmit to the player?
I think one of the things that we tend to say to each other these days is that we can't really enjoy games anymore as a player because we tend to overanalyze everything that we see by now.
I can imagine that.
And that is all the more true for the things we create ourselves. So whenever we create a scene or develop a mechanic or have a bit of script, it's immediately torn apart and analyzed and dissected to see what we can do to improve it, to make it more human, better, more tasty.
We're definitely the biggest critic ourselves. It's like and maybe even worse once we start to understand what we're going for, so the goals are getting straight and clear, the lists grow longer. So it's literally we start to polish over everything, and then 2 pages become 5 and 5 pages become 10. And literally if you would ask us like the game you see right now and most people enjoy it, there is a list of 1 million things that we could have done better in our opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's of course also knowledge that we take with us and experience to to whatever's coming next. So there, whatever we're creating after this is going to, be supported by that knowledge and experience, and we'll be able to bring everything on such a deeper level even than what we've achieved now. And it's it's funny to look back on something you've been working on for a couple of years, because at the end of the line you look back and it's like you're on this pinnacle of lessons learned, and there's a lot more to learn. But looking back, it's also it always feels like, okay, so I've done that, and now we're going to move on and create something much greater still. So sometimes it's also hard for us to just stand still for a bit and appreciate what we've done, because we see so many people enjoying the game and admiring it and being touched by the story. And that also reminds us to stand still for a moment and just appreciate and take in that we've done an okay job, and that's a great feeling.
Yeah.
We talked about iterations in the work methodology, and also iteration in the testing or to get the end results. Has there been a lot of iterations for the game concept itself? I mean, is the final product what you wanted since the beginning, or maybe you wanted to start with a Doom-like shooter, or I don't know, a space simulator?
Did
you try
off
several
with
things?
a gun, Koen.
Sorry?
We did start off with a gun.
It's some sort of a gun, yeah. No, it's the first thing what jumps to mind is that when you start a game company and you start a project, the first thing you need to figure out is, when you establish your team, is what is your team going to make, and what are you good at? And I think over the years we first found out the type of games we'd like to make. So I remember Deliver Us the Moon in the first moments might have almost been an RTS type of game, where we had some kind of a control over certain materials and stuff. And then it changed a little bit because we liked the third person genre very much. So we tried to work on to that part. And I think what really stood out clearly in the beginning was that we wanted to reach a certain high graphical fidelity. That was the first thing that came to mind. I just can't deal with ugly graphics. It's something that just I teased myself too much with over the years. But the concept changed a lot over time, and once we found solid basis and understood what the team was capable of making, we went for this narrative linear experience. It was a lot more open in some of the concepts, although the feasibility of getting that game out on such a scope, such a timeline, and still being green as developers was just a little bit too ambitious. So that's why I think this is the best substract of the game we could have created over time.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about the music and sound design. So I will focus more on Sander for the moment, because I've mentioned at the beginning the story was a strong point, but the music and all the sound is really great in this game. Don't get me wrong, there are many other strong points, but those two are the two mains that I've really realized. And how does the music and the sound design comes into the process? Are you already from the very first steps of the creation? Are you involved for the music?
Usually audio is usually in many projects, audio only gets involved in a rather late state of the project, where a lot is already determined and set into stone. And sometimes that's good, but it also means that there is not as much time to iterate on things. So I've been working on Deliver Us the Moon since 2015 or 16, I think. And that meant that there was a lot of time to iterate on so many things. There was a lot of stuff that needed to be done, so not everything, got as many iterations as it may have deserved. But being involved since such an early stage of the game really gave me the opportunity to dive in and, stay within that mindset for an extended period of time, which really allows you to, to immerse yourself in that atmosphere. And then I think you need that before you can create that atmosphere for other people. You need to be in there yourself, live it, and be submerged in that sweet, sweet space and void. It just takes time, I think, to get that right. And a lot of feedback. There's been so much feedback. I think we threw out an entire soundtrack before we landed on the current instrumentation and orchestration and style of everything. I think it used to be a little more fantasy-ish before we settled on the current style, which is much more inspired by movies like Gravity and Interstellar. In particular, I love the organ in Interstellar, and you hear similar organs in Deliver Us the Moon. It's been a wonderful source of inspiration. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's really an epic music. That's I think I
agree.
Yeah, I think I've done 2 times the sequence where you have to run to the shuttle in order to, and the music that is behind it is just thrilling.
Awesome.
It's
nice. Yeah, that's
really
actually a pretty funny system. One of our game designers, I think Steph came up with that at the time. He came up with a system where to make sure that particular sequence is thrilling for everybody, we would let the music adjust based on how far you are, from the beginning of your path to the end. So if you were a slow player, you would get the same amount of tension build up as fast players, because the speed with which you would complete that sequence wouldn't matter anymore for the music. We would let it change depending on where you are on your journey, and it's stuff like that that makes the experience so much more compelling, instead of just playing a single piece of music for an extended period of time. And that is also one of the advantages of being involved for so long and or since such an early stage of the project. It allows you to get so deep into how the game works and what's going on that you can adapt and adjust the music based on that. It becomes an actual part of the game instead of just being something layered on top of it.
Okay, is it what we call the dynamic music or interactive music? I've seen Olivier de Rivière talking about that. That's kind of
yes, he is on another level. Actually, he's the one who got me into this. When I first started out years ago, he suggested starting out with Athmod, which is a piece of middleware, which is basically software that allows you to integrate audio on a more complex but mostly user-friendly manner than I would be able to as a non-programmer in the actual engine. So it looks and feels like my audio software, only it gets integrated into the game. But Olivier he's a wizard with that stuff. He does a lot of interactive music. I think our music, I would say, is more dynamic, so it responds to what's going on in the game rather than your actions have a direct consequence on what the music does. So, for example, one of the games Olivier worked on, I believe the music adjusted to the combos you were making. It was a fighting game. That's not something that we've been doing, but rather we made adjustments to the music based on where you are and sort of what you're doing. But it's not as quick and super detailed as Olivier's work. Not yet.
Not yet. But it already works pretty well.
Thanks. Yeah.
About the releasing of the game. So you first released it on PC. And then you've added ray tracing and DLSS support, and then it reached consoles, and then it will come to the portable console, to the Switch. Was it in the plans since the beginning, or is it something that evolved over time?
definitely the last one. I think first of all, getting a game out is one kind of beast. If you manage to get that right, then you start to look at the opportunities. And the main idea was always to try and get it out on console as well. The RTX part was mainly done because this was actually a strange time, because this is last year, and the engine, just because we were working with Unreal Engine, updated in August, and it was the most stable version of supporting any RTX or ray traced work. And I remember that it was almost impossible to say, like, can we still release the RTX ray traced version this year? And honestly, I would say no, it was a little bit crazy, but still we managed to do it, and because of it, we were able to get it next to games like Control from Remedy, or like Wolfenstein Youngblood, who were just like a handful of games that supported this technology. And it is very beneficial to the graphics of our game. So it was a logical step for us to, if we want to be on the verge and the top of graphical fidelity, we should be investing in this. And especially since we're such a small company against those big ones, it was an interesting position to keep and to be in. So that's how it evolved.
And then later on, I think it was end of April, the game was released also on Game Pass.
True. Yeah. That's an interesting place to be in.
I guess so. But you have been part also of ID at Xbox program.
Yes, I think, and that's I can tell that over the years, because you are just figuring out what type of developer you are. Xbox and ID at Xbox was very quick to adapt to newcomers in that sense and give them a fighting chance in this industry. So I have to say, especially E3 2016 gave us so much of a stage where I was literally next to Insomniac Games and Dead Rising and Gears of War on the booth, where I was expecting to be part of maybe 50 indie games at that time, and maybe being noticed a little bit, but it was not the case. I was literally the only, pioneering indie that had just a simple tech demo on stage there and on booth. So we really have a lot of the success thankful to the early adaptations by ID at Xbox. Yeah.
Okay, so ID at Xbox is just not give you the possibility to deploy your games on the console, but they also give you a full package support, bringing you into events and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for visibility of the game, it must be huge. I mean.
Yeah, I think because at the time, especially in 2016, I wasn't so much aware of that. Was just straight after we've done the Kickstarter on the crowdfunding campaign. I wasn't so much aware of how much value that moment actually had. But when I look back at it and look at what games were around me at the time, I remember the only thing that Xbox said, well, the reason we took you guys is because you guys actually show up. Because in San Francisco at GDC, we also had an event, and that's the thing. Most indies are not very capable of traveling, for example, because it's really expensive. And the thing is, they're not, there are situations that partners like that can help out, but in the first place, they don't. You have to kind of prove yourself, like, are you really willing to do this? So the fact that we were there on our own dime, sitting, like, renting or having the worst hotel room ever, but still we're at the booth, at the spot, and they offering you this chance kind of, I think, make the difference for our studio that we became or were taken seriously.
Okay.
Yeah, showing up is such an important part of the process. Just being in people's minds and their vicinity. It's just being there, showing up consistently is. If you do that, you already have a head start.
True.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then came the Game Pass.
Yes.
Where did the initiative come from? Is it you who has contacted Microsoft saying, yeah, we are part of ID at Xbox, we would like to be in Game Pass? Or is it your publisher? Or is it Microsoft themselves who came to you to propose you that deal?
I would say it's literally a fight. So there's so many developers wanting to get attention, and I think the most important thing is, and that's what most developers will realize, is that discoverability for your game is almost non-existent right now. So if you are self-publishing a game, I can tell you that it's gonna disappoint deeply. So the moment that we knew about Game Pass and actually, first of all, understood what it actually was, that's where we started to talk more both ways, through publisher, but also through developer. It's kind of like the relationship you have with them from yourself, but also how the publisher looks at things. And eventually you just start to talk and see if there's any feasibility. And for us, the most important thing about Game Pass is that it kind of it makes people discover about you, so the biggest upside to this, and that was one of my goals, is that more players will see and experience this game. And with Game Pass right now, we do see this happen a lot. So we get, on a daily basis, we get so many messages by people that have found it through Game Pass, that our initial goal of making sure that we fight this discoverability problem is actually being met over time now because we are on Game Pass.
Okay. And the visibility is huge because they just give 5 or 6 games a month, which are high visibility, relayed by all the gaming sites, etc. So it's huge. But there must be also a kind of queue to be in the Game Pass. No?
Yeah.
I can imagine.
I would say it's just a matter of a conversation, and you have to feel it out where it goes, and that's the thing. Microsoft, and I think actually any platform you talk to, even if it's PlayStation or Xbox or even Epic Store, they all are in a position that they try to get as many eyes on products from people that worked extremely hard on getting them there, because it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no quality, because there's a lot of quality around, and managing that part, giving enough chances to aspiring developers is honestly still today an extremely hard job, I think, for any platform to give everyone as like a fair chance. So other than that, just make sure that you do not give up. That's the thing I have. Like, even though if you hear no a couple of times, expect a lot of no's. You just have to keep showing that you really want to give the extra mile and show them that you are a good partner in that sense.
Yeah. And I think you were day one for console in Game Pass, so
yeah,
you had to manage the deal long time in advance to fit the date, I guess.
I think I think this is definitely part also to our publisher, who just did their part of the deal very nicely, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have access to figures on Game Pass? So you know the number of players who has played the game and that kind of thing. Did you see a big increase of players?
Yeah, I am not allowed yet to give an exact number, but I can tell you that what we've seen is what we've hoped for, in the sense of getting discovered. So there is definitely a lot of players on. I know that Game Pass has around 10 million subscribers or something.
That's what they've said.
And especially if you look at that and become one of the 200 at the time, and especially a new game, because all of us use Netflix, and we all wait on that new thing that pops up every month or week. And I can understand that if something like this pops up, you give it a look, and even though if you're not trying it, the fact that you know about it or you see it is so much valuable. So, but yes, there's an increased amount of players that play the game. So also very promising on anything we might do next. I would say.
Exactly. And do you have also some visibility on the players who has finished the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that as well, yeah?
I would say there's like when you release, that doesn't matter what time. So for example, the first time we released, there's kind of like an average, middle ground. Like I think around 80% of the people loved the game, and 20% were shitting on it or hating it or whatever. And I always said, like, if you look at that and you see that over time, it kind of doesn't change, but it's more the scope or the audience. If you can grow that, the know-how about this game, it would kind of scale up so that 80% of people that love it just grows in numbers. So if you are being discovered a lot more, and that's what we, for example, helped that Game Pass did for us, you can see that this message, the 80% positive feedback, radiates in that scope up. So we get on a daily basis so much more people that say it moved them, and I think the numbers on, I'm not sure where we got them from, but it's around 50% of our players that finish the game. That's
quite a lot.
Quite high. Yeah.
I think
usually
the average,
it's 15.
20. I would say 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So basically, Game Pass is a great experience for you.
Yes. Okay. Correct.
Let's talk a bit about next gen, because that's something that is quite in the news for the moment, and especially today, because tonight is the PS5 reveal, apparently, or the games reveal, or we don't know. There are so many rumors about it. Are you hyped about next gen?
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Sander? I mean, when I saw we're working in Unreal Engine, and that showcase of Unreal Engine 5, is to us, it's like this is the most beautiful thing I've seen. So.
Yeah. It's like letting a kid loose in a candy store. There, when you look at all the extra power that's being brought to the hardware, it just opens up so many more possibilities for us as developers to create more complicated experience, more visually incredible worlds. They're even investing a lot in audio for the next generation consoles. So when we're looking at 3D audio or wave-based acoustics, it's really neat to see that kind of stuff is coming.
Yeah.
And some of these technologies were already available, but it just becomes so much more accessible and easier to use. And that's, I think, a huge leap forward. Also, the SSDs and whatnot that make loading speed so much faster, that just opens up the possibilities to make much more seamless transitions and experiences. And I think it all contributes to making the games kind of, more movie-like. You don't have to wait minutes anymore whenever you respawn after you get killed or when you transition to a new level. So I think that's a very exciting thing. Of course, I kind of compare it to traffic, where when you create extra lanes to a highway, it doesn't necessarily mean that traffic jams are reduced. It can also just mean that more people start driving there and the roads still get congested. And so I can imagine that developers are just going to push this generation of consoles to the limits. And that means that we're going to run into new challenges and limitations. But right now we're just really, really excited to see how far we can push this.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm bouncing on the SSD because that's a bit the main different part or the main different technology that we will have between the PS5 and the Xbox. we have seen some interviews of what's Thomas Mahler from Moon Studio, who has declared recently that the problem is that as a third-party developer, you won't do a lot of changes in your game design to fit one or the other machine, because economically it's not very viable.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost and the time would take more time. What do you think about that?
It depends on. Of course, it depends a little bit on your relationship with the platform, I think, and also what you like to what your forte is as a studio. So, what Sander said, I absolutely like how they thought about different things other than graphics, or making sure that these consoles make the game experience a lot more doable for a player. For example, installing a game for an hour, then loading it up, waiting for another 10 minutes. I have a kid at home right now. I just don't have the time anymore. So actually a Switch kind of is the better part for me, because I can jump in here and there. So, but on a development note, there's always things that will, even with the PS4 and Xbox One, there's differences that you need to just take in account, especially when you're still small. There's not much of a large demand you can make, because the industry is so fragmented right now that just releasing it on a PC or an Xbox doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right choice. It's literally how to get it out on as many as possible to reach the market you want.
Okay.
Or actually you need. Yeah.
And I guess you have future projects in the works. And are you already working on next gen? Do you have access to the dev kits or the? I know that Microsoft has released the game development framework or something like that you can use to develop a next gen before having the actual hardware. Is it something you are already working on?
I would say it's all part in like the process of transforming everything to there. So as much as we're actually now have a finished product on the market, and we're exploring new projects and possibilities and games, it's all part of that process. Not so, like as much as it is in development, it's also in business. So we're trying to always scale up both at the same time. So before we immediately dive into certain things, we also want to know how that benefits us in the longer end, because the new generation still needs to start up, and it's also very valuable to see a huge generation that's behind us. Literally, how God of War actually was released or became a very known series at the end of the generations, where I missed out because I was usually an early adopter of the new console generation. So I missed out on nearly all the God of Wars until the last one, by the way, because that's one I played. And that also shown that a very big title or a very known series can evolve at the end tail of the generation.
Yeah, indeed. And as you are excited about this next gen and the new possibilities that it will offer, for instance, ray tracing, hardware-based ray tracing, is it in the plan to deliver a patch later on to deliver us the moon in order to support ray tracing on consoles?
We're still discussing this. There's no real decision yet on there, but what we can say is, of course, we have the know-how on doing ray tracing right now, so it will definitely benefit us as a developer in looking at next generations. Yes.
Yeah, because as you have already implemented it for PC, it would probably ease the process of having it for the consoles.
Yep.
Let's talk about a bit the future for you. What are your plans for the future? Do you have any projects already in preparation? And any sequel plan for the Deliver Us the Moon?
Maybe sadly we cannot be very open about this yet, but what I always said is that we didn't make Deliver Us the Moon as a one-off, meaning that we always had in mind to build upon something like this. And, of course, it needs to be kind of, it needs to be kind of gifted to you. If there's an actual possibility for an indie like us to further develop new projects or spin-offs or whatever you want to do, it's something that is not necessarily automatically given right now, because the industry is really tough. And I would say we're definitely not here to make one game. So and so yes, there's projects and ideas in developments, and yeah, I only can say that what I've seen makes me very excited. What about you, Sander?
I think we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Things that people don't expect from us, things that they might expect from us. But as a developer, I think we're always going to go for strong atmospheric experiences. And Deliver Us the Moon was one such project. And, who knows what's next.
True.
But we're excited. Yeah.
Excellent. But I'm pretty sure, knowing the first game you have released, it will be really good. I'm sure of it. So
thanks.
Thank you.
So I think that's it. I think we covered quite a lot of subjects. Thank you very much for your time. I know it's very busy.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys, for this time. And
thanks for your questions.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was really nice talking to you.
Thank you. And all the best for the future plans then.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Oh,